Well, shifting from St. Patrick's Day to what's going on in our world, nearly 1 in 5, that's how many Americans have gotten at least one COVID-19 vaccination. But what about children and teens? Are the shots for them? And could expanding vaccinations to the younger generation be a tipping point ending the pandemic? Our reporter, Laurie Johnson, is with us.
A COVID-19 vaccine trial on children ages 6 months to 12 years old is just beginning, meaning most kids that age could get vaccinated as early as 2022. Trials on teenagers are well underway. They could get theirs as early as this fall. Christian psychiatrist Daniel Amen tells CBN News expanding vaccinations to children and teens could clearly help in the long run.
Well, I think over time they could be very important because even though children aren't getting dramatically sick, they still can spread the virus. And the more we get on top of this, the sooner we'll get away from a pandemic that has spawned a mental health pandemic that is devastating so many people.
Religious leaders went public with their shots at D.C.'s National Cathedral Tuesday to encourage the larger faith community to help end the pandemic as soon as possible.
As a believer and a scientist, I can see the opportunity to use the tools of science as a chance to be part of God's plan for healing. The vaccines have in many ways for many people been an answer to prayer. They are safe and effective beyond what we had a right to expect. And yet, they will not help people by sitting on the shelf.
President Trump, who is now vaccinated, recommends others follow suit.
I would recommend it, and I would recommend it to a lot of people that don't want to get it, and a lot of those people voted for me, frankly. But, you know, again, we have our freedoms, and we have to live by that, and I agree with that also. But it's a great vaccine, it's a safe vaccine, and it's something that works.
Meanwhile, overseas, the AstraZeneca vaccine is suspended in some countries over the possibility that blood clotting is linked to the shots. All this during a surge in cases, some blame on lifting lockdowns too soon.
They simply took their eye off the ball. I'm pleading with you for the sake of our nation's health. These should be warning signs for all of us.
Laurie's joining us now with more on these developments. Laurie, what about that AstraZeneca vaccine is not used here in the United States? Is that right?
That is correct, Pat. So people here in the United States don't need to worry about the AstraZeneca vaccine. It is not here in the United States. What's going on with the AstraZeneca vaccine is overseas, predominantly in Western Europe. So there are 3 vaccines here in the U.S., Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson, not AstraZeneca. But to answer your question, there have been some concerns about possible blood clotting. So out of an abundance of caution, they have stopped vaccinating people with the AstraZeneca vaccine. It doesn't look really, frankly, that there is a connection, but they have to investigate it thoroughly before starting back up again.
What about that one-shot J&J thing? Is that well available now for people?
Absolutely, and it's great because it doesn't have to be frozen. It only needs to be refrigerated. And the great thing about Johnson & Johnson is it's only 1 shot. The other 2 require 2 shots. So what health leaders are recommending is whichever one is offered to you first, just go ahead and get it because time is of the essence. Right now, it's not like a menu where you can choose which vaccine you get. You'll just be offered one.
No, I was told today in our community that Harris Teeter, which is a grocery store, is giving the J&J vaccination. I wonder if you go in among the carrots and the potatoes, then you get your shot. How does that work?
That's where I get my vaccines, at the Harris Teeter. That's our local grocery store. It's the pharmacy in the grocery store.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's safe to do that. Well, now, what do faith leaders need to do to get people to take this vaccine?
Well, faith leaders are really stepping up. For example, Franklin Graham mentioned today that not only does he think people should get the vaccine, he said that if vaccines were available in the time of Jesus, he would talk about them, recommend them, and use them himself. And also said his late father, Billy Graham, was a very pro-vaccine person and would take the COVID-19 vaccine if he were alive today. So a lot of faith leaders, Robert Jeffress, Beth Moore, and others, are not only encouraging people to get the vaccine, but also encouraging pastors who have access to a pulpit to make these recommendations to their congregations.
All right, last question. If you get the shot, the vaccination, are you free to go out and about and do what you want to do?
Well, the catch right there is you need to wait. So if you get a vaccination, 20 minutes later, you can't rip off your mask and go paint the town red. You have to wait a little while for your body to build up antibodies. 2 weeks minimum, but most health professionals recommend waiting 1 month, and then you can pretty much do what you want. Although it is recommended to continue to wear a mask if you're around unvaccinated people, because it's still unclear whether you can be a carrier of the virus. And so if you're around people who especially are high risk and haven't been vaccinated, it might be a nice idea to continue to wear a mask. That's why you saw people like Francis Collins and Anthony Fauci and even President Biden, who have been vaccinated longer than 1 month ago, still wearing masks around other people.
All right, thanks for that information. And folks, we're almost at the end of this thing. Thank the Lord. Well, in other news, after 6 weeks, President Biden is about to break his silence and hold a press conference. How about that? John Jessup has that story.
Thanks, Pat. The president's team says he'll hold his first press conference next Thursday, March 25th, after increasing media pressure. Most presidents in recent memory have held a press room Q&A within the first month. Biden also going one-on-one in an exclusive interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos. Responding to the growing crisis at the border, the president pointed the finger at the previous administration.
Well, first of all, there was a surge the last 2 years, and 19 and 20, there was a surge as well.
This one might be worse.
No, well, it could be, but here's the deal. We're sending back people.
Do you have to say quite clearly, don't come?
Yes, I can say quite clearly, don't come, and we're in the process of getting set up, so don't leave your town or city or community.
More than 4,200 unaccompanied children remain in custody at the Border Patrol stations, with many detained longer than the 72-hour legal limit. They're often kept in tent-like structures where some reportedly are sleeping on the floor. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy described the scene after a congressional visit earlier this week.
When we walked those facilities and we looked in those rooms that were packed, these were children with no parents. These were children that went numbers of days. Who knows what happened to them? Who knows who didn't make it? So no, don't encourage them to come.
Attempting to get a handle on the crisis, DHS deployed FEMA to the southern border over the weekend. And in Dallas, that city's convention center will be used to house up to 3,000 migrant teenagers. Well, an apparent attack on Asian Americans in a shooting spree targeting multiple massage parlors in Atlanta last night. 8 people are dead, 6 of them Asian, all but 1 of them are women. The first attack took place late Tuesday afternoon when a gunman shot 5 people at Young's Asian massage parlor some 30 miles north of Atlanta. About an hour later, investigators say an attacker walked into 2 other massage parlors, killing 4 more.
It appears that all victims are female.
And race?
It appears that they may be Asian.
This started up in Cherokee County. My understanding, they shot up a spot there. They've shot up 2 spots here in Zone 2. So we need to make sure if we have any Asian spots, we need to be checking on them.
The suspect, 21-year-old Robert Aaron Long, is in police custody. Investigators say it is, quote, extremely likely he's connected to all 3 shootings. So far, no known motive, but racially motivated attacks targeting Asians are on the rise nationwide since the COVID pandemic hit a year ago. A study by the group Stop AAPI Hate found nearly 3,800 anti-Asian hate incidents between March 19th of last year and February last month. more than 500 recorded in 2021 alone. Well, the Anti-Defamation League reports white supremacist propaganda made a surge across the United States in 2020. The report revealing 5,125 cases of hate messages, including racism and anti-Semitism, spread through flyers, posters, and banners. A former extremist says crises like the pandemic and the 2020 election controversies created opportunities to fan hatred. 2020 saw the highest spread in hate speech in at least 10 years. Pat, back to you.
Well, folks, my friend Pat Boone wrote a song called Can We Get Along? You know, it's time we start loving each people. The Asian Americans are wonderful people. The Hispanics are wonderful people. And the African Americans are wonderful people. And if we just get to love each other, I mean, really, what the world needs more is love, sweet love. I mean, we sing that song, but we really do need that. We need to love each other and recognize that each person is made in the image of God.
100 million Americans in 17 states face dangerous weather over the next couple of days. The Storm Prediction Center issued a, quote, high-risk alert for much of the South. Forecasters say large hail, intense rainfall, flash flooding, high wind gusts, dangerous thunderstorms, and tornadoes are all factors beginning today. The highest risks remain until Thursday, and Pat, the storms could last well into the overnight hours.
It's unbelievable. I mean, first we're having global warming, then they freeze in Texas, the worst freeze probably in their history, and the water they can't drink, and it's just awful what's happening to the weather. I mean, here it was crowding 80 degrees, and then it dropped down to 30, 29. I mean, it's just, I wish the weather would make up its mind. Wendy.
It's a crazy March.